everybody. Welcome to the No Name Music Cast. My name's Tim, and this is
Joy.
And before we get started with this week's topic, I just want to let everyone know that we now have an Instagram account. We've moved into the cyberspace, as it were, with Instagram. We were thinking of doing MySpace, but I think that's done. Isn't that done, Joy?
Yeah, I think we have to skip that. I had to explain to Tim because, he shut off at about 95. We couldn't do MySpace anymore.
Well, there we go. Anyhow, we have Instagram, and it's very exciting. So it's just No Name Music Cast, all one word. So search for us on Instagram and like and follow us on there. We posting different content than what we post on the Facebook page. We've had the episode last week, which we mentioned the Kiss Coffee House. I put some pictures of that up there. So yeah, follow us on there, and that'll be fantastic. So this week, it's Joy's turn to pick the topic, and I think I have a little inkling of what she's going to pick because it was suggested to us by one of our friends of the show.
So we have a lovely listener. She's actually the one who made the No Name Music Cast bingo card or drinking card or whatever you call it. Mm-hmm. So her name, she was West asked. She asked us to do a ZZ Top episode. And so I have a feeling part of this is due to, if you didn't know, they recently had a member pass. And that was just July 28th, I think. Yeah, Dusty. Yeah.
Yeah, it was not long ago. I mean, ZZ Top have pretty much been as they were for decades. So to have a founding member of the band die is a big thing in the ZZ Top world.
Well, and that's actually one of the things that one of the facts I read about is they're like the longest standing band with the same members across every band you could think of. Like that's one of their records. Mm-hmm. And so that's why it was such a big deal. And of course, it was one of the founding members with their beards. So, and yeah, he passed away. He had been struggling with his health for a little while, from what I understand, and he passed away at the end of July.
Yeah, I mean, very sad generally, but I mean, especially for the music world and for fans of ZZ Top. I mean, because they're only a three-piece. That's the thing with ZZ Top. Mm-hmm. It's guitar, bass, and drums. That's all it is.
Yep. So before I get into it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over some basic history that you guys might not be aware of when it comes to ZZ Top. And then I've got some really cool facts we're going to discuss, and obviously maybe some songs and things like that will come out. But I'm going to ask Tim his thoughts on this because he tends to be a little bit more of an expert in this field. From what I gathered, ZZ Top has a very distinct guitar sound that's very known in the guitar world. Is that true?
Yeah, that's correct. So Billy Gibbons has a very recognizable guitar sound. Now, he got his Gibson Les Paul, 59 Les Paul, that he calls Pearly Gates, very early on in his career. And for those who don't know, the Stradivarius, if you will, of the guitar world is the 1959 Gibson Les Paul Sunburst guitar. They only made a few hundred in 1959, and then the 1960 model has a different neck on it, and it has a different kind of sound. But the 1959 is the one that everyone says that's what you have. And if you was able to buy one, they're in the $250,000 range at this point, if you can find one. There are a lot of fakes out there, as you would imagine, but to get an original, that is seen as the best guitar that money can buy by a lot of people, at least. But Billy Gibbons has a 59 Les Paul, and he calls it Pearly Gates, because all good guitars should have a name, not a model, because that's how it is. And though Billy Gibbons and Dusty Hill are known for matching wacky guitars, like they have guitars that are covered in fur, they have guitars that are green, they have guitars that look all different kinds of things, and often they would match on stage or match in a video. Most of the time, Billy Gibbons is trying to get the sound of Pearly Gates, and anything he plays, he would set his equipment up so it had the same kind of sound as Pearly Gates, and that is the sound that he was trying to achieve. And one thing that sets Billy Gibbons apart, he does what's known as pinch harmonics, where when you hit with the pick, you kind of dig in with your thumb a little bit, and it makes like a squeal. And he's known for that. He's known for that sound.
Yeah, that's kind of what I read. They were saying that there's a very distinct sound, and it talked about that. And I was like, oh, I bet Tim would be great to tell us all about that. And you guys would not be shocked to find out he didn't research any of that before we started, and he just knew it off the top of his head because that's Tim. But anyway,
the other thing with Billy Gibbons is that there's another misconception in the guitar world that you need to have very heavy guitar strings, very thick guitar strings, to get a great sound. And I think it comes from the guitar. You ever heard of Stevie Ray Vaughan?
yes.
Yeah, he famously used heavy, heavy guitar strings when the strings would be very high on the fingerboard of his guitar, and that was deemed what you should have to have an incredibly good guitar sound. Billy Gibbons is famous for using a 7 set. Now, if you're not a guitar player, that probably doesn't mean anything, but I use a 9 set, and most guys use a 10 set. And then, people who are touring a lot may use an 11 set. He uses a 7 set. Now, typically you can't even buy it. And I think he has them made by a company, and Jim Dunlop's selling now and stuff like that. But he sort of proves that you can have the best guitar sound and just have these silly, flimsy strings, and it doesn't matter.
Well, I feel like it could be, and I could be wrong because I'm not a guitarist, but some of that I think is just the guitarist itself. Like, I feel like if it's defined by the player and not necessarily the equipment to an extent.
Yeah, 100%. A guitar player's tone is in his or her fingers. It's not necessarily in the gear. I mean, I'm very pleased with the way I make a guitar sound, and I think I have a sound which is not even maybe not unique, but certainly it's recognizable as me. And I listen back to recordings over the years. I've used different guitars, different amplifiers, different equipment, different. And it more or less sounds like me. And it's the same for, like, you hear David Gilmour, who's probably gone through 10 different rigs of this, that, the other, and different guitars and things like that. You can always tell it's him.
Well, and as a vocalist, it was funny. I was playing some vocals for someone recently. I played him our version of Creep and another song I had did. And while it sounded like the song, it still sounds like me. Like,
sure.
I can tell 100% it's me, and I imagine that's the same kind of thing. Like, yes, I'm singing the notes, and yes, I'm trying to match whatever I'm singing, but it always will sound like me.
Yes, absolutely.
It sounds like me. It's just the way I speak. So anyway, so basics are we had the 3 founding members that we were talking about: Billy Gibbs, Frank Beard, and Elwood Francis. So with that being said, he's right. It's a guitar player, a bass player, and drum player. That's your 3. That's the basics. So they were founded in 1969 in Houston, Texas, by Billy Gibbons. For 51 years, they were comprised of the same people. We were just talking about that. They're rooted in blues. And that's kind of where they get their sound, that blues kind of style guitar. And of course, they're rarely seen without their beards, their sunglasses, and their hats.
Yes, absolutely. And of course, the running joke with ZZ Top is that Billy Gibbons and Dusty Hill have the big old beards, but the guy who plays drums, his name is Frank Beard, and he doesn't have beard. Yes.
Yeah. And so basically when they got their start, I actually read a cool fact about where they got their name from. Have you ever heard where they got their name from, Tim?
I think I may have heard it, but enlighten me.
So what it was Billy Gibbons was originally a big blues aficionado, and he loved B.B. King. And they were considering going ZZ King in order of B.B. King. And the reason they ended up going with ZZ Top, because he said the reasoning is the king is going to the top.
Oh, okay. Well, that's fair enough. I mean, B.B. King is, or should I say now, was a fabulous guitar player, and he was the king of the blues. So naming yourself after B.B. King is a good thing to do if you want success, I think.
And I do think that you can hear a rhythm and blues kind of sound from them. I wouldn't necessarily define them 100% as blues, but I get where that's giving the backbone to their sound. Think about Tush or LaGrange or any of that. It all kind of has that rhythm sound.
Yeah, they're definitely rooted in that, certainly at the beginning of their career.
Yeah. So, and then they kind of just like any other band stuck out and changed it around. So from there, they did some local things in the area. And actually, one of the things you were talking about, Stevie Ray Vaughan, he came up when I was doing research. So ZZ Top was managed by Bill Ham in Texas, who's a native and befriended Gibbons a year earlier. They released their first single, Salt Lick, which I don't even know if I've ever heard that. In 1969 on the B side, containing a song called Miller's Farm. Both songs credited Gibbons as the composer. Immediately after recording Salt Lick, Greg was replaced by bassist Billy Eldridge and a bandmate, Stevie Ray Vaughan. And Mitchell was replaced by Frank Beard of American Blues. So he came into this too.
There you go. Fantastic.
So even though they apparently had opposite guitar playing thoughts and feelings.
Does your research talk about the band that Billy Gibbons had prior to ZZ Top called the Moving Sidewalks?
It does not, but enlighten me, as you said, Tim.
Yeah, he had his band prior to ZZ Top was the Moving Sidewalks, and they famously supported Jimi Hendrix. And they swapped him and Jimi Hendrix. Apparently, they swapped guitars at one point.
Okay, so all it says about it is ZZ Top formed after the demise of Moving Sidewalks. So that was the extent of what I got about them.
There you go.
So with that being said, they released the first album that reached number 8, which is Trey Hombrades in 1973, and then charted in 1974. So from there, their very first probably big hit that had their growling guitar tone, as we all know, is Lagrange, whatever you want to call it. I'm not saying it right.
I would say Lagrange.
That one. Go with that. Go with what the British guy said, which was also. Did you know that it was named? It was written about a brothel in Texas. Yeah,
I think there's a lot of blues and rock songs written about brothels or ladies of the night. I think it's a regular topic.
Well, and the same brothel was the inspiration behind the musical. Best little word I shouldn't say because we're PG around here in Texas.
I did not know that, in fact.
Same one. And so from there, they started touring, and basically they just kept going on into the early 90s. It does say they kind of got away from their sound for a little bit, and to their demise, they ended up going back to their guitar-driven sound. So it sounds like, from what I understand, there was a big push for them to get back to their roots at some point. Like they kind of broke away from that guitar, what everybody knew about them. So with that being said, the basics are they were just really popular. They have the longest running band as far as the same members of any other band without changing until Dusty Hall died in 2021. So I could go through all their albums and all that stuff, but I think that's probably the stuff we all know. I just want to hit on some cool facts I learned about them. So did you know Billy Gibbons, Dusty Hall, and Frank Beard were all born in the same year?
I didn't know that. That's an interesting fact. I'd imagine that they all come from the same part of Texas, but I didn't know that they were all born in the same year. 1949.
Oh. And in 1970, they held a show, and only one person came.
Well, that's not so hard. I've played, let me tell you, in my storied and long career of playing in bands, that I've played many times to nobody or maybe one person. I remember the gig. It was with Rough Justice, and it was in Woking, I believe, in a small pub. And I'm not exaggerating that there was the person behind the bar, and there was a guy sitting at the bar supping his pint with a newspaper. And that was the only person in the venue.
Well, the one guy who came to theirs, they bought him a Coke.
That was nice of ZZ Top, but I think any band, especially original bands,
yeah,
very early on in your career, it's very often that you're playing to nobody or next to nobody.
Well, there was a local band, I don't remember what their name were, but they were pretty good, and they're playing locally, and I just happened here and went. It was me, my twin sister, and there was one other audience member. And they were pretty good, but there was 3 of us, and it was on the 4th of July, so once it was over, the whole band walked over with us and watched the fireworks.
No.
So that was a fun little story. And then from there, this was, okay. So Tim, you've had some wacky concerts and things happen at concerts, and you've told me, everybody who's ever performed live, I've had some musicals where I've seen flying monkeys fall, people fall off the stages, all over. This takes the cake though. So during their 5th album tour, ZZ Top had live animals accompany them on stage, including vultures, buffaloes, and rattlesnakes. While on stage during the show, a buffalo rammed the snake cage and it opened while they were playing.
You go to a ZZ Top concert and you think that's cool and wacky. But let's just break this down. Let's think of the logistics of carting buffalo and snakes across the country, because you couldn't take that internationally, for one, because of quarantine regulations. But like just across the country,
like how big a buffalo is, Tim.
Yeah.
Not even quarantine. How are you gonna? You're not gonna get a buffalo on a plane. I mean, no, but really.
But you have so many trucks for all your equipment and the PA and all that sort of stuff. You're gonna have to have like animal wranglers with you. You're gonna have to have all the cages. You're gonna have to feed them. You're gonna have to have a vet. I mean, is it worth going through all that aggravation just for like a quirky thing of having buffalo on stage? Or do you think they were local buffalo that were brought in for the gig?
Are buffaloes native to Texas? I feel like they're an out west, like Utah, Colorado type thing.
I don't know. I assume there's probably buffalo in Texas. I really don't know.
Okay, well then it says the reason they did this was apparently stadium rock and the big shows in the 70s were taking off, and that was the big to do at the moment. The bigger the better. So they wanted to put on a bigger and wilder show, and they were embarking on their World Wild Texas tour, and they hoped to bring a little of their home state to international audiences. So I guess they did try to fly with the buffalo. I don't know. But they said that, there was also tarantulas, just so you know, and the rattlesnakes were venomous. I did look that up. And it says, as crazy as it sounds and as unsafe, Gibbons insisted that animal rights groups were present at all times to make sure all animals were being properly taken care of. So not only what you were talking about, they were paying people to make sure all the animals were kept safe for this entire experience.
Wouldn't it have been easier to have some fancy staging, or it wouldn't be a video screen, but maybe a projector screen or better lights or something? If I was amping up my stage production, more cabinets and equipment behind me or something. I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily think that I'd be getting involved with livestock.
Yeah, that was a very weird. That was probably my favorite fact. I just and could you imagine him? So take this in perspective. I'll pretend like I'm singing on a microphone and you're playing the guitar and you're like trying to, you got however many people they would have in an audience, 50,000 people in your stadium tour. And you're just sitting there and you're trying your hardest to focus, but there's a buffalo ramming the venomous snake cage right beside you. And you just kind of have to keep going.
Well, I can tell you, I haven't quite had a buffalo venomous snake incident, but I have an incident that didn't end very nice at all, but I will tell the story. So I was playing in Roanoke with my friend Kirk Farmer at 202 Market, if you know where that is.
I do.
It's opposite Awful Arthur's, right in downtown Roanoke. And we was doing an acoustic gig. And
I've seen a concert there once.
Yeah, and this guy came up to us, I think, before we played or during the break or something, and he was a nice enough chap, and he was chatting to us and talking to us about music. And he insisted on having a picture taken with us. I don't know why. We used to have a guy who was an amateur photographer who come to a lot of our gigs and take very good quality pictures. And I actually have a copy of this picture in my archive.
That's fun.
So he came up to us, wanted his picture taken, and the guy took the picture, and it's all good stuff. And then he walked outside, I think, to smoke or to get some air or something like that. Or they had seating outside or some combination of that. And there was some person who had like a Rottweiler or dangerous dog was walking down the street and it mauled him.
And, that makes me feel bad for him. It also makes me feel bad for the dog because the owner shouldn't have been putting some type of scary dog like that in that situation. Do you know what I mean? Like, as an owner, it's your responsibility to know what your dog's capabilities are, know if you should be walking outside in the middle of the night. And now also to train your dog. And if your dog's not trained, don't let him walk outside of bars in Roanoke. Like, no. And you put that dog up for failure. And also a poor guy got mauled and, Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't a good scene. And I remember, like, a couple of days after the fact, it was on, like, WDBJ7. And I was like, hang on a minute. That was us 2 days ago.
Was he okay?
To be honest, I don't know. I hope it wasn't too bad, but I heard about it after we finished playing, and I was like, really? That's terrible.
Okay, well, I'm going to change it to something positive. Well, not really positive, just a funny thing that happened to me. So when I was in The Wizard of Oz, and I was in the Broadway version of The Wizard of Oz, not the version you see like on TV. So the stage version is different. And the trees in the Broadway version are singing and dancing, and they have solos, and they talk, and they make all these. They're very like wisecracking type trees. So
as most trees are. You know what these trees are like. They're funny.
Yeah, there's a part where you have to like throw apples and you're like, how about them apples? Like just silly stuff like that. So I was a singing tree. And I'm just sitting there, and obviously, and they made the costume like I was like, it was out of cardboard so that I was tall. And, you know, my arms were out, my head was out, and that was painted, and my arms were like green. Anyway, doesn't matter. So I was just singing tree, and I'm just doing my little thing. And there's a part where, and you might kind of remember where they go through like the poppies, the opium poppies, and they like pass out or whatever. Mm-hmm. So in the stage show, they have basically like a dream, like a drug infused dream. And she dreams that the poppies are singing and dancing around her. Mm-hmm. So anyway, so you got your little poppies coming out, and they're wearing their little poppy outfits, and they're kind of dressed like, so they've got their little flowers on, and they've got like a green unitard type thing and green leggings, things like that, you know, make them look like a poppy and a little red skirt. And they're wearing little slip-on shoes, like dance shoes. Because when you're on stage, you have to be very careful about what shoes you wear, because one, you need to be able to move in them, because, you know, a lot of dancings and musicals, but two, they can't make a lot of noise, right? Mm-hmm. So a lot of times if you're not wearing a dance shoe or a stage shoe, you'll just wear like a slipper of sorts. It's a pretty popular choice because you don't really see their feet. So the little poppies run on stage, and I'm sitting there in my little tree, you know, going back and forth. There's only so much I could do. Well, one of the poppies is wearing this little slipper, and they're doing the little fever dream, and her shoe flew off and hit somebody in the face in the audience.
Oh, dear goodness me.
Yeah. That's the same show where a flying monkey slammed into the ground, and I broke character, and the tree started laughing.
Oh, dear.
I couldn't help it. So the flying monkeys were in full monkey costumes, and they ran from the back of the stage to the front. And I mean, you have to remember, stages are slick. He's got monkey like feet. I don't know how to explain it. Like think like a gorilla costume. And so his feet went out from underneath him. And I mean, I'm talking about like classic banana peel fall, hits the stage, back to the stage, slams right in the middle of the stage.
Oh, goodness me.
And I tried so hard, but I mean, I just started laughing. There was nothing I could do. I broke every stage. So my whimsical, wisecracking tree also started laughing at the flying monkey. But the flying monkeys were evil. So, I mean, it was acceptable.
Yeah, because of course it wasn't a real person. It was actually a flying monkey.
Yeah, and it wasn't a buffalo ramming a rattlesnake cage. All right. So you may have heard this, but ZZ Top refused a $100,000 offer from Gillette to shave their beards off for an ad.
Yes, I did hear that. The beard is very much the identity of ZZ Top. And there are some pictures on the internet of Billy Gibbons before he had a beard. And it's quite disturbing.
It's just not the same, Tim. It should not be allowed.
Yeah.
Also, their music. So this kind of goes back to the episode we did, the one before last, where we were talking about where albums and things have been produced. That's kind of interesting. Mm-hmm. So their music has been played in outer space. So even though that we know their music's been played throughout the world, in 2011, a previously unreleased song called Flying High was played publicly for the first time on the spacecraft. I'm not even going to try to say it. Soyuz.
Soyuz.
Yeah, sure. What Tim said. While en route to the International Space Station.
Well, that's cool. It would have been a Russian Soyuz capsule. I also know another ZZ Top sort of out of space microgravity fact.
What's that?
So, Penn Jillette of Penn and Telephone wanted to do one of these zero-G flights. And you know that NASA have them, and they call it the Vomit Comet.
Yeah.
where it goes in a parabola. So it goes super down low and it goes up and it goes down. And when it's on some of those arches, you experience the equivalent of microgravity. So you're flying around. But but it really makes you feel unwell. So Penn Jillette wanted to do it because he wanted to recreate the opening titles of Barbarella. If you're familiar with Barbarella.
Yeah.
With Jane Fonda. So what he wanted to do was sing the Barbarella song whilst stripping all his clothes off in zero gravity.
Of course he did.
And ultimately he did do that, and then he vomited. But I've seen the video. No one needs to see a naked Penn Jillette vomiting in zero gravity. But
I'm perfectly fine.
Yeah, but that's beside the point. But he met at an airport, in an airport lounge, Billy Gibbons. And he was telling, because he sort of knew Billy Gibbons. He's like, "Oh, Billy, how you doing?"
Yeah.
So when he bumps into him in the lounge, he said, "I've got involved with this Zero G company, but at the time it wasn't approved by the FAA. So Penn Jillette had to be on the board of directors to go on the flight." So Billy Gibbons said, "Yeah, I want to go in microgravity as well." So Penn got him on the board of directors so they could do one of these test flights in zero gravity. Billy Gibbons decided that he was going to take not Pearly Gates, another expensive Gibson Les Paul guitar he had, because it was already an expensive guitar, but he figured if he took it in microgravity, it would be worth even more. So in this same video, you see Billy Gibbons with his beard dressed up in his stage attire, tossing this Les Paul in the air, and it's like spinning around because it's in microgravity.
Just took a turn.
Yeah, if I can find the video, it used to be on YouTube. I will post it up in the Facebook group because it's just like a lot of odd things
happening all at once.
All at once, yeah.
That would be weird. So speaking of weird videos, I thought this was strange, and I went back and found a copy of it, and maybe I'll find it and put it on, because this was on YouTube. So it's on January 22nd, 2010, Billy Gibbons accompanied Will Ferrell and others playing/singing Leonard Skinner's Freebird, which I'm not a fan of, but that's okay, on Conan O'Brien on The Tonight Show, with O'Brien on the guitar, which I did not know Conan O'Brien was a guitar player.
Yeah, Conan has played guitar for years, and I know exactly the circumstances of that. So Conan O'Brien had The Tonight Show for about 8 or 9 months. He was promised The Tonight Show. Jay Leno would not stand down. And then he got The Tonight Show, and then Jay Leno had some kind of funny show that was before his program, and it was a whole mess. Conan didn't get the break that he was promised, and then Leno went back to The Tonight Show, and Conan got fired from NBC, and then he went to TBS, and it was a whole network TV politics nightmare. Yeah, absolute debacle. So he moved all of his crew and all of his staff from New York, where they used to do Late Night with Conan O'Brien, and they moved it to Los Angeles for The Tonight Show. And they built a brand new stage, and they built it on the Universal Studios lot. And in fact, when I was last in California, we got tickets to see Conan O'Brien, and I think I may have actually mentioned that on the podcast before, I think. But anyhow, we saw Conan's Tonight Show being taped for that very short period of time. And when you do the Universal Studios backlot, prior to us being on the show, they showed you the new building and all this kind of stuff. Anyway, a lot of entertainment insider people and people in the entertainment industry were not happy with the way that Conan got dealt with, because he's always a super cool guy, always supported bands, always supported music. He always had a lot of quirky acts on his show. So people were not happy about this. So on his very last program, all these people played Freebird, Billy Gibbons being one. I think Neil Young also is on the same show, but I don't think he got involved with the Freebird thing. But yeah, Conan plays guitar. Conan's a pretty good guitar player.
I mean, I may have known that, but I just didn't know off the top of my head. So you were talking about kind of wacky things. I felt like that was a lot of wacky people all in one place together.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not that you wouldn't really necessarily put them all together, but there you go.
Fair enough. So just some kind of facts about their music. They actually have sold global sales in excess of 50 million, hold 6 number 1 singles on Billboard, like the mainstream Billboard, and achieved 4 gold, 3 platinum, and 2 multi-platinum album certifications and 1 diamond album. So that can kind of put in perspective, though, how long they've been in and going. Let's see here. Oh, I didn't mention earlier, for people who were wondering about the outer space thing, I kind of got distracted because Tim started naming a very weird, wacky set of people doing weird things in space. It was a pre-release recording of the track, so ZZ Top obviously did not actually play it in space, though that probably would have been epic. Let's see here. So, I mean, Tim...
I was going to say, as cool as it is, who's the band that had Fergie in it?
Black Eyed Peas.
Black Eyed Peas. So, as cool as that is, the Black Eyed Peas had one of their songs broadcast from Mars.
What? That's random. I wonder what song it was.
I can't remember what one it was. But what happened is, like, the one of the Mars rovers, they loaded their song as data onto it before it went, and then the Mars rover broadcast the song back from Mars.
Well, it's just random that of all people in the world, it'd be the Black Eyed Peas.
Yeah, you would think it'd be Paul McCartney or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. But I like the Black Eyed Peas just fine, but I don't know that would have been my pick. So another thing is, have you heard about Billy Gibbons? He has his car, the hot rod, that appears in their videos.
Yeah, Eliminator. So he's a fan of hot rodding and like super modified vehicles and things like that. That's one of the passions that he has. And Eliminator is, I think it's like a 34 Ford or something.
So what it was is, so it's obviously, it was built in the 80s, but it is constructed of parts from the 1930s Ford models.
Yeah, it's a 1930s super modified Ford. And whenever you see any of the 80s video, Legs, Got Me Under Pressure, any of those iconic videos from the MTV era, you see Eliminator, and that is the name of the car. Now, I was actually lucky enough to see Eliminator in real life. The very first time I went to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland, they had Eliminator there, and it was on loan from Billy Gibbons. And sadly, the first time I went to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which was in the early 2000s, you were not allowed to take photographs in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So I don't have any record of it, but I remember seeing it and thinking it was super, super cool that it was the actual Billy Gibbons Eliminator car.
Yeah, that's and so that they talked about it's been used in many albums, and it's one of his big passions in life. Another thing was they recorded original songs for Back to the Future Part 3 and the movie From Dusk Till Dawn. So basically, it says, considering that Caesar Talk took a little bit of a falling directly out of the Old West, ironically, the bands were a natural choice to provide a theme for the Back to the Future movies. It was part 3 specifically. The final installment, which was set largely in 1985, ZZ Top's track, double back features on the film and on the credits. And the band also appeared in the film itself, playing an old-fashioned music acoustic rendition of the song. Did you watch Back to the Future 3?
Yeah, I've seen Back to the Future 1 100 times, 2 maybe 10 times, and I've seen 3 maybe once or twice.
So they're like in those little black outfits, remember, and they turn around, and it's the song Double Back. That's them, like it's actually them. That's
correct. And at the time, ZZ Top in their videos, they had this arrangement with they'd have these guitar straps that would spin. So like you could spin them around, and it would spin on the axis of where your belly is. And they did a callback in Back to the Future 3 where they had like traditional like Mexican style instruments, and they had them rigged so they would spin. So it was kind of, a cool throwback to the videos.
And then I'm not super familiar with it, but it does say that it isn't the only original track ZZ Top has written and recorded for a movie. There's also She's Just Killing Me, which featured Robert Rodriguez, wouldn't know that, and Quentin Tarantino's 1996 crime thriller vampire horror film From Dusk Till Dawn. So I guess they both were in that. They did songs for those as well.
Yeah, unsurprisingly, I have actually seen From Dusk Till Dawn. I've seen it once. and it's all right. But the soundtrack of that film is absolutely fantastic, and it's another one of those films where I think the soundtrack transcends the film to some degree. I mean, maybe I'm biased because I'm not a super fan of film, but I've always had that soundtrack in my digital collection, but I recently picked it up in a thrift shop for $1. And I'm glad I have it because it has some really good songs on it, and it does have "She's Just Killing Me," and it has a couple of other ZZ Top songs on it as well.
Interesting. I've never watched it, but there are plenty of movies that I've always thought that the soundtrack is better than the movie, or I like the soundtrack. And I tend to be the type of person that a good soundtrack can make me like a movie. Like, I tend to prefer movies that have good soundtracks if I have to watch a movie because I'm not a movie person. Mm-hmm. So like the music can make a good movie for me that I'll watch over and over again, which is why I'm such a and I am in the musicals. But I mean, even like I've told you guys, I've watched Footloose about 1,000 times, which is just a very famous, notorious soundtrack. And so movies like that, I totally get it. So another thing was they did, I don't know, have you ever heard of a song by them? And it was a little later in their career, but it's I Got to Get Paid.
Yes, I have, and it's got. If it's the one I'm thinking of, it's got a really cool video that's set in like a petrol station, gas station thing, and they open up a cooler and ZZ Top are in it or something. Well,
Tim, you will be interestingly find out that it is a cover of a rap song.
I did not know that.
So. But it was in 2012. It was a single, I Got to Get Paid, the band's last commercial release single to date. Taken from their album La Futura, which sounds like a vintage ZZ Top album, but it's actually a cover of a rap record. The track is a reworking of 25 Lights by DJ DMD, featuring somebody's name I can't say, and Fat Pat. DJ DMD and company are from ZZ Top's hometown of Texas, and that's where they had heard the original record in 1998.
Well, there you go. I mean, one thing that's about ZZ Top is, yes, they are a rhythm and blues type outfit, but their sound has changed through the years. And certainly when you get into the 80s and the MTV era, not only did they embrace pop videos as a medium, with Eliminator, as we just discussed, but they started to bring a lot more of a synthesizer sound into their sound. I mean, the whole of the Eliminator album has a lot of keyboards and synthesizer sounds in it. And for someone who is as somebody who are traditional blues, rhythm and blues artists, a lot of people wouldn't embrace that, but they were very happy to embrace it and change their sound through the years. And then the album that came out after that, Recycler, even embraces that a lot more.
Yeah, and that's what I was talking about when I said at the beginning. They kind of had I guess they did a 360 according to some of their really hardcore fans, that they started out with sound, they got away from it, and then they kind of made their way back to that old school sound, from what I understood. Yeah,
there was an album prior to the one that you was talking about called Antenna, which was really their beginning of their coming back to that basic sound. And I remember reading some articles at the time where they said they didn't have all of their regular gear for the recording sessions. So they got both Billy Gibbons and Dusty Hill got very basic guitar equipment and just went into the studio to see what happens. And they came up with a very raw sounding album compared to what Recycler and Eliminator and all those things were.
So on the Eliminator album, which was, it's got Legs. That's probably the most number one single I could think off of Eliminator. Mm-hmm. And they does say it did feature synthesizers, and they credit the synthesizers being so popular at that time. And made the album be played heavily on MTV, which in turn made the album probably their highest selling album they ever had. So the synthesizers worked for the main pop string artists.
Yeah, because certainly in the 80s, synthesizers, even with rock bands, were a thing. And go back to Queen for you bingo card fans out there. In the 70s, they proudly put in their albums no synths. All the sounds you heard were Brian May's stack guitars or that kind of stuff. And as they moved into the 80s, they started embracing the synthesizer sound.
So also, apparently, the song Legs, which feminists alike did not necessarily care for. And when I listen to the lyrics, I will say it's one that I don't know always stands the test of time, but I do like the song. With that being said, it was written about an actual person. So he said it was by chance he was driving through a heavy downpour in LA. He saw a girl walking on the side of the road, and he thought, well, I better pull over or at least turn around and offer her a ride. By the time he got around, the girl was gone. But when he says the first thing he noticed was her legs.
Well, there you go. I mean, it is what it is,
and
I
the
suppose.
rest is rock and roll history. So that's what the song was about. And of course, if you're going to play legs, they also have another song called Tush, if you didn't know.
Exactly. And they also have a song on that same album called She's Got Me Under Pressure, which is about, how can I say in a polite format, restraints.
Restraints. What a PG way of saying it. All right, Tim. So we're just going to put you on the spot. If you had to pick, what would you say is one of your favorite, or what is probably your favorite album, or what from ZZ Top do you think would be your favorite?
Well, I like a lot of the cuts from Recycler. I think there's some good stuff on there. And then you've got the early albums, which are a lot rawer. Cheap Sunglasses and things like that. But if I had to pick one, and maybe I'm tainted to some degree because this is probably my favorite era, but I would say that Eliminator from beginning to end is absolutely first class.
It is right up your alley in that time frame, I think, Tim, from what I know about you musically. So that makes sense. And I'm not going to play, I don't like that kind of thing. I the whole thing about synthesizers and it playing to pop music. I've never been one to shy away that I like pop music. I think it's silly to be that way because pop music literally just means popular music of the time. That's what pop music means. I feel like it's been kind of made synonymous with people who are they're not logical, they don't think past what's popular, but I don't find that to be true. I think that music is supposed to be fun. Music can be fun. It doesn't have to be serious all the time, guys. That's my TED talk. Thank you for coming. So I would actually agree with you. And I like Cheap Sunglasses. I'm just going to tell you the truth. I really like the song. I like Cheap Sunglasses.
I mean, that's good. I mean, as I said, I like Rough Boy, which is on the album that came out after Burner. After that,
yeah.
I mean, that's a good song. But I mean, Give Me All Your Loving. I mean, Eliminator for me is the definite article when it comes to ZZ Top. And then I like this. I forget the name of the very last album they came out with. It was Mescalero, I think.
Yeah, it was something like that when I saw it on the research I was looking at a minute ago.
And there's good stuff on there. And on that, they've gone back to their sound, but it's with the sort of 80s style production to some degree, but it's all with guitars and those synthesizers. But
go ahead.
Yeah, but as I said, Eliminator is where it's at.
I can agree with that. I think that overall seemed to be what most people, even though it's ironic because apparently there's a subset of diehard I guess maybe almost to the point that they're kind of music snobs that are fans of ZZ Top and they give them some hack for kind of getting away from their sound. But I mean, no one artist should have to be, I don't think any one artist should have to be tailored down to one sound because art is free flowing and it's changing and you should never be held to one certain thing.
No,
I mean,
there's a whole schools of thought with bands. I mean, like Deep Purple, which is a band that we had on the album challenge a number of episodes ago. So Richie Blackmore is their classic guitar player. Classic Deep Purple, Smoke on the Water, all the songs that you heard on that album is Richie Blackmore. Now Richie Blackmore left Deep Purple, and a guitarist called Steve Morse came in, and he is a very different style guitar player to Richie Blackmore. He's a lot more schooled, I suppose, is the way. His tone is very different. Richie Blackmore's a little bit more loose and free, and Richie Blackmore is famous for some very kind of neoclassical styles. And Steve Morse has a very different. Anyway, it became a completely different band the minute that Steve Morse walked in. And there's still a camp of hardcore Deep Purple fans who want nothing to do with Steve Morse, even though Steve Morse now has been in Deep Purple longer than Richie Blackmore was.
But that's interesting, I guess, though. I mean, people like what they like. That's all I can say. But I just think that so I'm going to give a much more modern day reference that Tim might not know a whole lot about. But a good example is someone who's done many different things. So I will say this. Most artists generally stay in their same genre because they know what works for them, right? They know what works for them. They know what their sound is. But they can deviate from it. Now, it's like, if you have a really good singer who can sing really high octaves and really, like they talk about Mariah Carey having this 12 octave range. Yes, you can do that. But usually as you kind of get away from that core, it gets less and less, like it sounds less and less good. So same thing with the pop artist. But one artist that I can think of who stayed near her core, but has played around and done different things, Lady Gaga. So Lady Gaga started out as a mainstream. And I think I think what she did, this is personal opinion, I think she played the system. And here's what I think she did. She put out her first album with like Poker Face that became, and I actually liked her before that. That sounded very music snob of me, but I even have the album before that and it was really good. But she put out an album that was going to be popular. Think about like that Poker Face kind of sound that kind of plays into what was popular in Main Street at the moment. She put that out, got her name out there as this kind of pop artist. And then over time, and this is why you don't hear about her as much, as she started putting out what she wanted after that. So I think she produced an album that was going to be popular, made record deals, make everybody look at her and be like, oh, because she's actually musically talented. Like she's classically trained pianist. Like she went to Juilliard. Like it's like a whole thing. And if you've ever heard her sing, she can sing from anything. She can even sing opera if she wants to. So like in her later albums, like Monster Ball and even the most recent ones, they all have a different sound. And so I think she's one of the artists that has stayed to her pop roots. And I think she sold us. She made everybody think she was going to be this just like a simple pop artist. And, but that she broke out of that. And you see she can do more. And she's a good example of someone who's moved away from what I called like, that middle range, but not so far that it's extreme and it doesn't alienate her audience. She's just one of the main artists I can think who I think did that well.
Are there fans of Lady Gaga that only really like her for her appearance on MTV's The Real World?
I know exactly what you're talking about. We need to put that clip on the page afterwards. She laughed at herself over that.
I think that's where she got her break on MTV's The Real World.
I don't know. She makes fun of herself for it. I probably would too. But she's a very talented, regardless if you like her music or not, she is a very talented music artist. And she's played with all the different, she even did multiple albums with what is his name? Tony Bennett.
Tony Bennett, that's correct.
Yeah, she her most recent album is very different than previous ones you've seen. And I think she's an artist that takes what she knows she does well, but can expand on it, and it doesn't go too far. Because if she did put out like a full polka album, I might be a little concerned, unless Weird Al was behind it, and then I'd be like, okay, this is cool. It's the only exception. Weird Al gets behind it. So did you? We're getting close to the end here, but did you see when ZZ Top played at the Super Bowl with the Blues Brothers and James Brown in '97?
No, I didn't know that they did the Super Bowl. I know the Super Bowl used to be lots of variety acts, and at some point it became just having one big star doing their 8 minutes or 12 minutes or whatever it is. Yeah,
it was actually pretty good, which not every Super Bowl halftime show is. We realize this. But they did with the Blues Brothers, of course, which, I'm a huge Blues Brothers fan, and James Brown. So it was a bluesy kind of sound for him, which makes sense once again with the ZZ Top thing. And apparently they also played at the Orange Bowl that year, which I did not know. But I'll post it up. It was a pretty cool concert, and the sound was really good. And I think it kind of played to their original thing. Trying to think if there was anything else, but I think we hit most of it. To this day, though, I got to go find if I can find a picture of the buffaloes ramming into the rattlesnakes. I want to know if that's out there.
There probably is. I mean, it was before instant digital photography, but I'm sure some avid fan would have captured that. Before we go, I must tell my tale of seeing ZZ Top in Roanoke.
Oh, yes. I did know that was coming. That's how we'll end it, Tim. Tell them about your tale of seeing ZZ Top.
Okay, so we decided that we was going to see ZZ Top when they were touring, and they were playing the Performing Arts Centre in Roanoke, which is a smaller venue. It's probably, for our UK fans, it's probably the size of Hammersmith Odeon, maybe a little bit smaller, but it's that kind of idea. And if you're somewhere near the front, the seats are really good. So we were able to get really good tickets for it. So we had the tickets, and then it cancelled. And this was before all of your COVIDs and all that kind of business. But it cancelled. And the reason that it cancelled is I think Dusty Hill had hip surgery. So he's had some health problems for some time before we lost
Yeah, they
him.
said
So,
he was diagnosed with hepatitis recently or something.
yeah. So I think he had a hip replacement because I think he broke his hip on tour, which is why they had to go ahead and cancel the date. So anyway, the date got cancelled, and we decided to keep the tickets and wait for the replacement date. And they came up with a new date, which was like 8 months or 10 months after the fact. So we went to that concert. And again, we still had really great seats, 3 rows from the front. It was absolutely fantastic. Probably the best concert tickets I've ever had. Because normally you get concert tickets and you pay through the nose for them and you're sitting in the last row. Like I did when I went to see Paul McCartney, and I'm literally the furthest away from Paul McCartney.
When I saw the Backstreet Boys, I was at the top of the stadium against the wall. I understand.
Yeah, exactly the same. So we were 3rd row from the front, fantastic. And I've got some good pictures that I took of ZZ Top at that concert. So they had a support band whose name completely escapes me now, who were fabulous. Normally support bands are like, yeah, it is what it is, and then they come and they go. They were great. They got a standing ovation from the crowd. They were that good. And I wish I could remember the names of them. And I bought their CD on the merchandise table, and it was nowhere near as good as their live performance. But anyhow...
That's interesting.
Yeah, but anyway, ZZ Top come on, and they play all of their hits, all the songs that we speak of, every song you knew that they played, you knew, and they had a cool setup. They had like amplifier stacks on stage, and then some of the amplifier stacks weren't really speakers, and they turned into video screens. So when they played Legs,
cool.
Yeah, when they played Legs, they played some of the footage of the Legs video. And when they played Give Me All Your Lovin', they played some of that footage too. And then I think they played a Jimi Hendrix song, and then they put his picture up on there. It was a cool presentation. It looked
Apparently,
super...
did you know Jimi Hendrix also said that Barry Gibbons is one of his favorite guitars? Like, it goes both the love for Jimi Hendrix and him go back and forth.
Yeah, and I said, I think it's from when they played together. They used to share the bill often when he was in the moving Sidewalks. Anyway, so bearing in mind these tickets they weren't stupid expensive, but they were probably in the $150, $140 a piece range. They only played for an hour and a half. Which seemed a little bit of a con.
They were born in 1949. Remember,
yeah, but like you see, like I've seen Paul McCartney, and I admit that you equally paid through the nose for that. But Paul McCartney played for 3.5 hours. Or if you go and, I mean, I'm not a big fan, but if you went to see Bruce Springsteen will play for 3.5, almost 4 hours sometimes. He just goes on and on and on and on and on.
Okay, so and Paul McCartney was born in 1942, so...
There you go. So anyway, they only played for an hour and a half. So I thought, well, that wasn't good. But the worst part of this, absolute worst part of this, they played all their instruments live. Guitar, bass, and drums were all live. And they played to a sequencer. And what that means is the drummer would have a headset on with clicks going on it. And all the keyboard sounds come from a track, effectively. Yeah. And that's not such a bad thing. Other bands have done that. Van Halen have done that.
I've heard of other bands doing that kind of thing.
And often if you've got like a band with a small lineup, guitar, bass, and drums, it's common that you may have sounds a sequencer. That's standard.
Yeah.
However, between the songs, Billy Gibbons was complaining that he had some kind of throat infection or a bad throat. And as he was talking to the crowd, he could barely address them. He was very croaky.
Okay.
And then he would launch into a song.
And it would sound perfect.
It was absolutely perfect.
Huh.
And what I found out after the fact is that whole tour... Billy Gibbons' vocal was in the same sequencer track as the keyboards, and the minute he went to sing, they cut the vocal mic off, and he was lip syncing to a track.
That's hard.
And I read some forum posts about this to see if this was real. And some people said no, they couldn't be doing this. And some people said no, it was very obvious. And I thought it was pretty obvious because I was close to the front. So what I did is I went on YouTube and I found like 3 videos of that tour that we was at.
It's the exact same, wasn't it?
Yep, and I started them all at the same point, and the vocal line is completely identical.
Yeah, that's one of as a vocalist, that is the number one thing I can tell you. I'll tell you it is dead set, like there's a pre-recorded track, which I'm not against the use of some backing, like, because some songs are so grandiose. Like, there's a song that Sia does that she got some flack because she used a backing track, but like, it's almost vocally impossible to perform that on the spot all the time. So I'm not opposed to using technology to some extent, but that's hard when. And also the fact that they made it so obvious, like complaining about his voice being messed up and talking about it between this. Do you know what I mean? It's like, man.
And it's what, you know, it's one thing, I think, if you go and see a pop act, which is very much a production, and I mean, Katy Perry doesn't do this, but if I went to see Katy Perry play and it's a big, almost Cirque du Soleil style production,
Britney Spears.
and she lip syncs tracks, that's one thing. And I know that Britney Spears on some of her tracks, that when she had a Vegas residency, she was lip syncing, and I think her argument was this is a huge big dance production and it's staging.
Britney Spears famously has lip synced for the last 10 years, but that's what she says. She's like doing acrobatics on stage.
Yeah, exactly. So I think if you go along with that expectation, knowing that that's what you're getting when you go to a Britney concert. Yeah, it's a theater production. But if I go and see a rock and roll band, I'm not expecting that.
One artist that I didn't understand getting flack for lip syncing was so Beyonce has an amazing voice. Beyonce's a very good vocalist. She's a mezzo soprano, which means she can do some really pretty alto stuff, and she can also go up high. That doesn't mean she could sing like, Celine Dion level, but she does have, in most pop artists, another famous mezzo soprano is Madonna, right? Mm-hmm. So that's a common range for pop artists to have, is to be mezzo sopranos. When she sang at Obama's inauguration, she wasn't singing live, and she said it's because she was singing for the president, and she had worked on Obama's campaign, promoting him, and was a big fan. She said she was nervous, it was cold, she had a cold, and she was singing for the president. She just wanted to be perfect. She never once lied and said that she was singing live. And I'm like, I get it, like that would be a little nerve-wracking for anybody.
Sure, but again, I mean, she's not fronting a rhythm and blues rock band.
That kind of has that. I know. I get what you're saying. It's not like the same. Yeah.
Yeah, a rock band to some degree is seen as rough and ready, sort of. You know what I mean?
Well, and you don't need spot on vocals all the time. It's more the fun. It's more of the. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, there's like a sense of going to see a rock band. I get that, especially like ZZ Top. Like, they're notorious for that almost growl kind of sound in general, and so like you. But also, it just cracks me up that like they made it so obvious.
Yeah. I tell you what, Joe. We will leave this podcast, but I leave it with a question for you to answer before we go. So, as we know, we've lost Dusty Hill, and Dusty Hill is gone, and he won't be coming back. His wishes was the band was to continue, and prior to him dying, the guitar tech or his bass tech, Elwood somebody, had done a few gigs sitting in for him just to make sure that the show went on. So they are now back out on tour with this chap, Elwood, guitar tech, bass tech, whoever he is, sitting in the place of Dusty Hill. Now, it was Dusty's wishes that the show should go on. But should they go on, and is it still ZZ Top?
I feel like they should at least finish the concert tour. Mm-hmm. And just kind of wrap it up. You know what I mean? Like, I don't necessarily think that, but I mean, think about the Beach Boys. How many Beach Boys are left? And maybe going on for how long?
There's one. There's Mike Love. Mike Love, that's it. One Beach Boy.
But they still call themselves the Beach Boys, and they're still out there going for it. So, I mean, I don't think that they have to completely chop up shop, like put up shop or whatever. But I do think that they should end the concert. Like, they should definitely finish at least this tour. Mm-hmm. And kind of bring that kind of full, and then reassess and go from there. The other thing would be is, it's hard though, because of the big thing about ZZ Top was being that log stand. Like, I saw on every page I looked at about how they're the most log standing band with the same members. Like, that's their iconic thing. So that's what makes this even harder. It's not like where we were talking about Earth, Wind, and Fire the other days, went through 74 members.
That's the thing, because it's always the three of them, and that's at some point, do they just become a tribute act to themselves?
Kind of, I think so. And I think what I would do if I were them is I would definitely finish the tour, maybe take a break and reassess from there. to make decision. And the other thing is, make sure they're advertising it right and people know what they're getting when they go to the concert.
That's true. I mean, I think I'm with you. I think they should finish the tour. I think they should then decide what they want to do. I know they have another album in the works that has stuff on it that Dusty Hill played on, so maybe finish that out and then close the chapter.
Yeah, that's probably what I would do. And I mean, time is not their friend in a sense that, like I said, they were born in 1949. And it sounds like, and I don't know if this is true, whatever concert, I don't know if you've looked up any more concerts since the one that you went to, but do we know if his voice is like just messed up for life now, or was it just this concert tour?
I don't know. I didn't investigate any more AC/DC live. AC/DC. I'm getting my acronyms. Like I'm getting my letters mixed. There's too many letters in rock and roll. What's going on?
Oh, it's funny. All right. You didn't look up anymore. I'd be curious to see if any of the other tours past the one you saw has him singing, or if they're all backing tracks, because if his voice, because as you get older, different things affect your vocal cords.
Sure.
It could be, and to be honest, a growly kind of sound, that's going to be rough on your vocal cords. They're going to rub together. It's not going to be sustainable long term. That's a factor. Age affects the vocal cords. Hormones like testosterone, different levels of testosterone as you age, affect the vocal cords. So if he can't sing anymore either, that could possibly be a deciding factor in where they need to jump the shark.
Yeah. Oh, well. Well, we will. I tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, we will ponder the future of ZZ Top. And if they want any career advice, we would be happy to guide them through this difficult time.
Yes, if they would like to join us on the show, we'll see you next week.
Okay, we'll see you later, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.